Hey guys, welcome to RC Video Reviews. Man, I love that riff. I love it. It's just a really cool mellow tune. It's neat. I like it. Hey, anyway, I got together today with you guys because I had a request in comments, and it was after I saw the comment, I thought, what the heck, man? Why haven't I done this yet? And the comment was very simple. The comment was, hey, can you do a video on Edge to show how to set up a plane? I mean, I can't believe I didn't have a video on that already. So to the individual who recommended that, thanks. Kind of like sometimes you overlook the forest for the trees, I guess. But anyway, I want to start out by first laying some groundwork because you guys have taught me. And what I want to start with is today we're talking about a color radio screen. We're not talking about black and white. I do have a black and white radio, and if there's enough interest in it, I'd be happy to do one on a black and white radio as well. But for the purpose of this video, obviously it's color, okay? And the second thing I want to point out, again, you guys teach me these things, right? I'm using 2.6.0 as of February 13th, 2022. This is the latest firmware. So I'm going to just say this out loud. It may, for some of you may be like, well, yeah, no kidding. But believe it or not, I have to say these things. If you use something different than this, your feature set may look different than mine. Okay. So as of today, this is the latest stable release. 2.6.0 is the latest stable release. So if you want to follow along, if you're going to watch this or try what you're about to see on your radio at a later time, you need to be using 2.6.0, or your things may change. Your features may change, or the procedures may change slightly. It's doubtful it would be like a sea change, but they might be different. Okay, so I just wanted to lay that groundwork because, again, you guys have taught me. If I don't do these things, then people come in the comments and go, hey, it doesn't work on my radio. What's up? And that's why. All right, so let's get into it. I want to get moving on the material, and we're going to start with, I'm going to give you guys a little look at what we're going to do, okay? So today the objective is how to create a new model. That's what I'm after. That's what I want to show you guys how to do. How do we create a new model? That's point number one. The next thing within that model that we'll do is we will set up a flight timer. That's important. I think it's very important to have a flight timer because, for those of you who think you don't, then you already know what to do. All right. For those who aren't sure, most people, I think, it's my opinion, most people prefer to have a flight timer. So I want to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to set up basic dual rates, real simple dual rates with what we call defensive programming. I'll show you how to reverse a servo. So in case you set up your plane and the servos aren't going the right way, I'm going to show you how to flip them. I'm going to show you how to add a couple of widgets on your screen so that you can see things like your outputs, your model picture, or whatever. And then the last thing I'm going to do is show you a little extracurricular. This is outside the scope of creating a new model, but there are some things you can do in the radio itself that make managing your models easier. So I'm going to show you those things. If you got what you needed in the first set of bullets, feel free to leave the video, right? You don't have to watch to the end, but I'm going to give you some extra stuff too that goes beyond the basics of setting up a model plane. Okay, so that's the objective for today. We're going to go back to the big camera, and I'm going to zoom in. Here we are on the screen. This is the screen you get. In fact, well, let's just start from scratch. That way there's no confusion. Remember, we're on 2.6 on EdgeTX on a color radio. Okay, so we'll just boot up the radio. We got our little splash screen. I'm going to skip the warnings. And here's my first model. It's loaded up. So we're going to start out by, there's two things you can do. You can either press the model. I'm going to try and use the touch screen as much as I can just to kind of show you guys how cool that touch screen can be. So we'll touch the little logo here, and we're going to hit select model. When we do select model, that's a little pop-up that comes up, and I have a couple of categories. If you're new to this, you probably won't have these little airplanes up there. You might just have one. All right, I have these because I have categories set up, so don't let that throw you. You might see just a blank screen here. If you do, that's fine. All you have to do is long press on this jog dial right here and hit create model. So you create model, and that's gonna, what it's gonna do right now, it's actually creating a model, and it's adding some basic parameters, okay? So you can see it just created model number 22, and that's the one we're in. So if you well, let's see. Yeah, that's the one we're in. So after you create it, it kind of selects it for you. All right. So now we're going to back out. We're going to back out of the model selection screen by pressing the return key. Now we're back. This is the model I just created. And the way I'm going to prove that to you is we're going to hit the screen and we'll go to model settings. So the icon, we're in model settings. You see how it says model 22? That's the model we just created. So that's the one we're in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press on this field, and we're going to give this plane a name. So the keyboard pops up. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. I kind of like the keyboard. You know, it's a little small, and I know they're going to work on that, but this is what we have for today. So I like using the keyboard, and I'm just going to call this, we'll call it my plane, and that's it. And for the image, so I'm going to just select an image. We'll use, all I have on this one, oddly enough, for helicopters. So I'm going to use this, I'll use the M2V2. I'll use my little M2 helicopter. So don't let the image thing fool you. All right, so when we go back, you look and you say, okay, well, I don't see the image. That's because we haven't done the widgets yet. We'll get to that. So okay, so I'm gonna go back real quick, and I'm gonna go to the Blackboard and say, okay, create new model. We've just accomplished that. You guys can see that in the model select. If I hit select model on the screen, big camera so you can see what I'm seeing. Let me go back here. You hit the button and select model. And when you do that, you'll see that we have my plane right there. That's the image that I selected for it, right? Little helicopter image, but that's my plane. So we accomplished task number 1, which was to create a new model. So task number 1 is done. All right, we've created a new model. Now I'm going to show you some of the things that go into that new model, right? These are things the radio does for you. So we'll press the model button, and I'm going to skip over to the inputs, and notice these inputs are already defined, and they're defined based on the parameters I gave my radio during setup. So my mode is AETR. So that's the mode I prefer. And what that means is that it will assign, I'll show you the mixer in a minute, but what this means is it creates inputs based on the aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder stick. So it creates those inputs for me automatically, sets their weight at 100%. That's done, all right? So it does that for you on the setup. The next thing, if you hit the next page, notice we're on the mix screen. It created mixes. Now the mixes connect the input, which was in this tab right here. It connects that input to a channel on your receiver. That's what's going on here. So that input that we created here is a software construct that maps your aileron stick right here to a software thing that we can use throughout the radio. That's what the input is. So it's got aileron right here, and that's connected to the stick. You see this little stick logo? That's the aileron stick, and that's now connected to this input called ailerons. So that input now on the mixer screen, that input aileron is connected to channel 1. The elevator input, you see this little logo? Pay attention to that, and notice that that logo matches this logo. See that? There's a reason. They're very smart about iconography on this radio. So pay attention to these things. They'll tell you a lot. So the elevator input is connected to channel 2. The throttle input is connected to channel 3. The rudder is connected to channel 4. That's what a mix does, all right? So all that did was connect our inputs, which are defined on this tab, to a channel which goes out to the radio. All right, so the mixes are defined for you automatically. You didn't even have to do it. It did it for you automatically. Now the next thing is outputs. In the output screen, you can see you have a range of -100 to +100. There's a sub trim, and there is the middle. And we can also reverse that. I'll show you how to reverse a servo too. But notice that there aren't any names here. So if you want to have names here, there is a tool on the radio. This is a little bonus footage. I wasn't really planning on doing this, but let's do it anyway. We'll go in here and we'll do multi-channel namer. You see that down here? And what that should do is name the outputs according to, oh, I got to configure a multi-module for Pete's sake. See, this is why you don't go off script. Let me turn the module on real quick, and we'll just do, I just have to enable this. Okay. Sorry about that. See, this is why you don't go off script. All right, model radio settings and multi-channel namer. There we go. Enter. There, it's done setting channel names. Now we can go back, and we should be able to see in the outputs that the aileron, the names were added. So you got aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder. See how those were added? Okay, that's what that multi-channel namer does. All right, so now we're in the output screen. And the outputs, this is the final massage before data is sent out of the radio to the receiver. Okay, this is the final manipulation that you can enact on data leaving the radio. That's what the output screen does. Okay, so we've created a new model. We've got our inputs defined. We've got our mix defined. We've got our outputs defined. That's all done on setup. And by the way, you guys saw that was like 2 clicks, right? It was go to the model setup page or the select model and then create new model. That's it. The radio did all the rest. You can't, you know, I get a lot of people say, well, I'm so confused about how this works, but it's so simple. If you just have to play with it a little bit, but the radio did all the work here. I didn't do any of that. Okay, so let me go back to the Blackboard, and we did to create a new model. Next up, we're going to set a flight timer. Okay, let's go set a flight timer. We're going to go back. We'll just go back and hit the page left key. All right, so we'll hit page left. We go back to the beginning of the model setup. And the next thing I want to do is set a timer. Now notice you have options for a lot of timers. You've got timer 1, timer 2, and there's timer 3. So you can set 3 different timers. We're just going to do one, and you'll get the idea, right? So I'll do one. We'll set one timer up, and we'll let you guys figure out what to do from there. So I'm going to name this timer flight. I'm going to just call this my flight timer. All right, that's it. Just give it a name. Call it flight timer. There we go, enter. Now, under mode, you have a couple of different options. There's throttle percent, and throttle start, or off, on, and start. So what I use throttle, and the reason I use throttle is because I don't want my timer going until I've moved my stick forward. Once I've advanced my stick forward, then I want my timer to start. Throttle percent changes the rate of the clock based on how far you advance the stick. So basically at full throttle, you get a 1 second increment. As you decrease the throttle, the timer slows down. It's 1 second is like a half, 2 seconds. So it slows the timer down because the theory is that you're not using as much power as if you are at full stick. And a lot of people swear by that one. I've never really been a fan of that. I just want the timer to count, and it works for me. So remember, I always say this, lots of different ways to do things on OpenTX, EdgeTX, and also your money, your hobby. Do it the way it makes you happy. Whatever works best for you, do that. And then there's another option down here, throttle start. And what that means is once that throttle starts, it goes, the timer goes. Okay, so if you shut the throttle off, the timer would keep going, versus throttle, where when you activate it and deactivate it, the timer will start and stop if you kill the throttle. Okay, that's the difference. So we're going to use throttle in this example. And then the one other thing I like to do is I like to add a switch. Now my throttle cutoff is on the right hand side. If you don't follow my channel, you won't know that I switch my momentary and my toggle switch. So over here, I move my momentary switch over here. And over here is my, I make that a 2-position switch, and I use that for my throttle kill. So that's my throttle kill. That is SH. So I'm going to use SH away. When I unlock my planes, that's unlocked. That's armed and ready to fly. So notice that when I did that, it changed automatically in the screen for me. So here's how that manifests itself. What that says is when my switch is away, my throttle unlock is unlocked, and my stick moves forward, that's when I want this one to count. Now, another thing about these timers you'll notice, you see how this starts with 0, 0. What that means is this, if I left it that way, whenever this timer is active, it will count up. It will count up from 0. All right. Now, if you want it to count down, you have to give it a value. So we're just going to give it a value of, say, 2 minutes. All right. I'm just going to give it a 2-minute timer. We'll say it's an inefficient EDF jet. So two minutes. There we go. 2-minute timer. So now we've made our timer. I've called it flight. It's activated with the throttle. It only works when my throttle is unlocked, because when I'm on the bench, if my throttle is like, the reason I do that, if I'm on the bench and I'm moving my stick around, I want my timer to start. That's why I do that. Okay. So throttle away, or the disarm is armed. Now when I move that throttle, that timer starts. So we have to go back to the screen now and see how that works. Now I'm going to jump ahead a little. So if you look at the blackboard, I say first widgets. I need to show you the timer, so I'm going to add a widget. We have to add a widget now so you can see that. Now, the way we're going to add a widget is we go back to the main screen and we hit this telemetry button and we hit set up widgets. We hit set up widgets. We hit set up widgets. Apparently, I'm not doing it right. Okay, so we'll press the screen and come on. Work with me a little here. Select widget, and we're going to use timer. Oh, I know why. Timer. I'll explain what just happened in a minute. Timer, and then there we go. And then we'll select, while we're in here, we'll go ahead and select the model output. That's my helicopter. And then down here, I'm going to do another select widget, and we'll use outputs. Okay. So all I did here was I told it use my model image. That's models right here. So I use that. That selects the picture. And then on this side, I said, I want to use outputs. That's this one right here. And that shows me my stick outputs. And you can change the parameters if you want. And then the last thing was my timer. I said, let's show the timer. You can select the different timers that you have. You have timer, remember you have timer 1, 2, and 3. And you can select any of those that you want. So I use timer 1 for my flight timer. So that's it. Now we go back to the main screen. I'm going to go back to the blackboard. That's the one where I said first widgets. Those are the first widgets. We've already done that now, so I should have moved that up top. But there you go. Now you know what the widgets, the initial widgets look like, and that's the way I like to set up most of my planes. And, you know, the outputs, that's nice because it gives you a little look at what's going on with your sticks. You know, if you need to look down and see, you've got a picture of your airplane and you've got your flight timer. Now, you guys might say, well, hey, your throttle was up and your timer wasn't going. Why? It's because my throttle was locked, right? So if I unlock that throttle, there we go. You see how the timer's moving again? Okay. Now I'm going to show you, stick around for the extracurricular stuff, because another question I get all the time is how do you reset a timer? I'm going to show you how I do it. It's kind of trick. It's cool. It's really easy to set up. I'll show you how to do that. A lot of people have no idea how to reset a timer. So if I lock my throttle, my timer stops. If my throttle's active and I bring my throttle down to 0, it stops. All right. So if I'm unlocked on disarm, I'm armed rather, you know, switches down, and my throttle is at 0, my timer stops. If I activate my throttle, my timer starts. All right, there's your timer. Okay, let's go back to the list. So we've created a new model. We've set up a flight timer. Let's look at dual rates. Okay, dual rates. I'm not going to explain what dual rates are. It's outside the scope of today's video. Hopefully you know. If you don't, join us on Discord and we can talk about it. I'd be happy to walk you guys through dual rates. But bottom line, I'm not going to go into too much detail on what dual rates are. I'm just going to show you how to make them. So we're going to, oops. Okay. By the way, I said earlier I'd show you what happened to explain what happened with the screen. I also have a setting in that extracurricular activity stuff we're going to cover that disables touch when my throttle is active. So if my plane is armed, my touch screen is disabled. I'll show you how to do that, but it's just a safety thing that you can do if you want. I'll show you how to do it, but that's what I told you I would explain earlier. So I have to lock my throttle, like disarm the plane, then my touch screen will work. Okay, so we'll go into model settings and we're going to go to inputs. Okay, notice on inputs, we've got aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder. So we're going to do dual rates. I'll set them up for aileron and elevator just to give you guys a look at how it works. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to long press. I'm going to use my jog dial for this. So I'm going to long press here and I'm going to hit copy, and then I'm going to long press again and I'm going to hit paste after. Okay, notice how I now have 2 lines of inputs for the aileron. You see that? The aileron right here, the input, has 2 lines defined, both connected to the stick. That's what I just did. I did a copy and paste that enabled that. So we're going to edit the first one. And notice, by the way, that only one of them is highlighted. You see this yellow bar? That's the one that's highlighted. That's the one that's active. The one that's highlighted is the active line. This line is not active. All right, so let's go in, and we're going to go into this active bar, and we're going to edit it. And I'm going to say I want this weight to be, just for argument's sake, we'll make it something smaller, like 90. And then for the switch, I'm going to apply a switch. And for me, I use SB for my switch. So I'm going to use SB, and I'm going to click it on SB up. And notice how the box changed to SB up. That's Sierra Bravo up. All right, so now press enter on the jog dial. And now what I've done is I find a switch for that line. So if I back out of this line, you can see that SB up and 90% of my weights, that's one rate. The weight is a rate. So that defines how much throw you're going to have. So that's the high rate now. All right, now I'm going to go in the next row, and I'm going to edit this one. I'm going to long press and hit edit. Now all I did was I scrolled down to the white, and you see this blue cursor that highlights, right? That blue line. When I scroll to the right, that blue line drops down to here. That's now on this line. So I'm going to edit that line. Edit that line, and I'm going to set this weight to be 50. I'm just going to set it to be 50. Who cares why? It's just a demo. So we'll set it to 50. And for the switch, now I know a lot of you guys are going to say, well, you do SB mid or SB down. No, this is the defensive programming thing that I talked about earlier. We're not going to use SB mid or SB down. What we're going to say is when we're not SB up, and that means there's an exclamation right there, not that exclamation point, SB up. And what that means is that when this SB switch is in anything but the up position, I want this to be the active line. Does that make sense? That's defensive programming. So what that means is that I can put it in mid and I can put it in down, and notice that it stays highlighted, right? It doesn't matter if it's mid or down. What matters is it's not up. So if it's not up, this is the one that's highlighted, okay? That's what I mean by defensive programming. Now, if you want to do a third row, you could do mid rates, and I often do. I'm just trying to keep it simple for the demo. But if you did a mid rates, then you could do SB up, SB mid, and SB down. But if you're not doing mid rates, or another option is if you're only using a 2-position switch. Like, I don't even know if I have one. No, this one. This is the only 2-position I can think of. So if I were using that for my rates, then you could do SB up and SB down because there is no mid. The point is, you don't want to go out flying, accidentally put it in the middle position and lose control of your radio. That's why I call it defensive programming. Go ahead and set it for not SB up, and that way it's either on high rates or it's not on high rates. That's the logic. That's how it works out. It's either on high rates or not on high rates. Okay, so that's aileron. Let's just go ahead and do another one for elevator real quick. I'm going to edit this one, and we're going to do, I'll do a weight of, I don't know, 80. And I'll add some expo in this one. We'll do some expo of, I don't know, 40. We'll call it 40. And then we'll add a switch. And this will be our high rate. We'll call this one SB up. So there we go. That's our high rate for elevator. And now I'm going to copy this. I'm going to highlight it and hit copy. And then I'm going to highlight or long press again. And I'm just going to hit paste after. Okay, now see how I have a second line for my elevator. Now I'm going to long press again. Or not long press, just click the jog dial. And then we're going to click on edit. And now we're in the edit screen for the elevator. I'm going to press on the switch field and we're going to do not SB up. Remember, not SB up. That's defensive programming. And we're going to change the weight a little bit. We'll lower it down to, I don't know, let's lower it down to 40. And we'll increase the expo a little bit too. So we'll increase the expo up to say 60. Okay, so now you can see on the screen, as I move this SB switch, you'll see aileron and elevator both move. You see how both of those highlight fields are both moving? And it doesn't matter if I'm in the middle or bottom position. It stays, the middle and bottom are both the same, right? Because they say, if it's not SB up, that's the line that I want active, okay? That's the line I want active. Now, let me show you how that manifests itself on the plane in case you're not completely familiar with dual rates. What I did is I backed out. We're going to go into channel monitor and I'm going to activate my aileron, okay? And we're in high rates right now. Switches up. There's high rates. See how I've got 90%? Now, if I bring that switch down, see how my aileron just changed to 50%? That means that the output is reduced from 90 to 50 on the output, okay? Make sense? So there you go. There's dual rates. Let's take a look at the blackboard. We've created dual rates. You can do that on any surface you want. You can do elevator only. You can do aileron and elevator, aileron rudder. You can do whatever you want. The rates can be applied however you want to apply them. It doesn't have to be on. And by the way, that's one of the huge advantages of OpenTX because it's one of the few platforms that offers that kind of flexibility. So you can do, bottom line, you can do rates on any combination of surfaces you want, and you have complete control over how much those rates are changed per surface. All right, so there's dual rates. Now let's reverse the servo, and I want to go back to the big camera. We're going to bring the channel monitor up one more time. And I'm going to show you that right now, if you look at, this is another one, you got to pay attention. This is what I love about the developers on this platform. They're very clever because you see how they've got outputs and mixers, okay? So the yellow, that's what's going to the radio. The blue is what the mixer sees. The mixer says, hey, he moved the stick to the right. That's what the mixer sees. The yellow is what's being sent to the radio, the receiver on the plane. So right now, I haven't reversed this servo, so both the mix and the output are both going in the same direction. But what if when I do that, my aileron's going the wrong way on the plane? You have to reverse the servo. So you don't want to change, you don't want to fly like that. So you have to tell the servo, hey, when I go this way, you need to go the other way. All right. That happens a lot. So you have to know how to reverse the servo. So we'll click on model settings and we're going to go over to outputs. And under outputs here on aileron, we're just going to click this and hit edit. And there's an option right here called inverted. You see that? Inverted. So just click that. And now we're going to go back to the channel monitor and I'm going to show you what happens. So when I've inverted that output. So now when I move my stick to the right, there's the mixer line. That's in blue. It goes to the right. But look what happens to the output. It goes to the left. Okay. That's a reverse servo. That's how you do it. There are a lot of people who say, well, you can invert the weight. Yeah, you can, but I think that's a bad practice. I would never recommend that. I would stick with keep your weights the way they are, because if you start doing mixes, then it starts to get a little cattywampus. It becomes hard to kind of map it out. It's not impossible. It can be done, but it's just a very simple thing to go in and reverse the servo and not worry about it. So that's what I recommend. If you have to reverse the servo, do it that way. So that's it. Okay, let's go back to the blackboard. So I've shown you how to reverse a servo. We've already done first widgets. So cool, we're getting down to the bottom. It's time to show you some extracurricular, and then I'll be happy to take your questions. So if you guys have questions, now's the time to start putting them in the chat window, because after I show you my radio options, I'm gonna take questions and we're gonna wrap it up. So again, we've done everything on the list. I showed you how to create a model. I showed you how to set up a flight timer. I showed you how to create dual rates. I showed you how to reverse servos, and I showed you how to set up your first widget. So you now know how to create a model on EdgeTX. Okay, that's a done deal. Now, what's after this, what I'm about to show you, isn't really about creating models. So that's extracurricular stuff. If you got what you needed, feel free to drop. You don't have to watch the rest of the video. But if you want to see other little tricks that I have up my sleeve to help me manage my models, stick around. Okay. All right, big camera. Now we're done with the model specific stuff. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is press system, and you can either press the button. You know, I realize that I'm hybrid. I kind of bounce back and forth. I don't know why. I can't explain it. But either way, you can either do that, or you can press this one and you can go to radio settings. Okay, in radio settings, we're going to look at global functions, which are right here. Now, what global functions mean in EdgeTX is that it applies to all models. Special functions only apply to a given model. Global functions apply to all models, okay? And there is an option in your model setup to ignore global functions if you want, but that kind of breaks the spirit of the concept of global functions, in my opinion. So I leave that on. You know, my global functions, when I define a global function, it applies to every single model on my radio, okay? All right, so that icon is right here. It's this one. So we're going to go over to that icon. You can either press on it directly. And see, that's the advantage of touchscreen, by the way. It gets real fast. When you know where you're going, it gets real fast. All right, the first global function that I define is I put volume, and I'll show you the edit on this one. So on this one, the switch says on, the function is volume, and the switch is S1, and there's an enable. That's it. So what that means is that my S1 switch right here, this switch controls volume on my radio. Now, there's a, you see this little icon right here? When you turn that dial, you can see that little icon showing you volume's going up, volume's going down, okay? So that's how I control volume on the radio. I think that's a very useful technique to use on all models, irregardless of what kind of plane or craft you're flying, because sometimes you want to turn the volume way up, sometimes you don't want the radio talking to you, so you turn it down. That's what I've used S1 for my volume basically since the dawn of time with me and OpenTX, EdgeTX. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one I have is the backlight. There's an option in here where I'll show you what it looks like. You set the switch to on, you set the function to backlight. The value or the switch that I use is the left slider, and we put that on enable. What that means is my left slider over here lets me control my backlight. And they did fix, by the way, they used to have it where if you brought the backlight all the way down, the screen went black. They changed that. It no longer goes completely black. I love EdgeTX guys, man. These guys are freaking awesome. That was a good fix, because there were people who were dimming their screen to black and they had to reset the radio because they couldn't figure out how they did it. So now you can only lower it down to there, right? And that's great. Awesome. Good job, EdgeTX guys. Who needs the screen to be completely off, right? So left slider, that's my backlight function. I'm going to bring it down a little bit so you guys don't get blown out on the video. That's global function number 2, and that applies no matter what model I've got loaded, okay? That's the global function. Now we'll back out of this one, and I'm going to show you the next one. I have high rates, mid rates, and low rates. Remember my SB switch I told you? High rates, low rates. See that how that line is moving? Now what that means is when I turn my volume up, I must not have the right soundtrack on here, but what'll happen when you have the right soundtrack identified is it will play rates. So let me just find it. I didn't set this up after I did the Emily sound pack. So let's see, where did let's see, idle up 1, landing, rate high. There it is, rate high, and we'll do this one. I'll just set it on rate low. Probably should have went the other way. Okay, rate low. No, this is rate medium, right? Yeah, SB mid is rate medium. And then I'll do this one. It'll be rate low. Now, you might say, John, why are you doing this? It's because by doing it this way and putting it in global functions, I don't have to set it up per plane, right? So now, there it goes. Low rate. Medium rate, High rate. So that's Emily. I'm going to bring it up so you guys can make sure we hear it.
Medium rate, low rate.
Okay.
High rate.
So I set the audio prompts up in my global functions. That means when I set up an airplane, I never have to worry about setting it up in special functions, right? It's already done. It saves time. Okay, so that's why I use an option in here for high, medium, and low. I put it in global functions, assigned to a switch, plays the track. That way, every single model I have, I don't have to set that up ever again. It's always the same. Okay, next one I want to show you is logs. Notice I have this one on SH up. So what that does, you might have noticed when I activate this switch, you see how that just highlighted? If I go back to the main screen, you see that little blinking dot right there? Any telemetry that I'm getting is now being logged to my SD card. So I just do that by default because these logs take up a minuscule amount of space on the card, almost nothing. And now any telemetry I have is on my radio. So it doesn't matter what craft I have, whatever telemetry I'm receiving, I'm logging it. So it's another trick that I've used, and I've learned to do that because if you say halved current and you want to know what your current is, you can open that log up and take a look. And by the way, Companion has a really nice log viewer for the log files that come off your card. So that's why I do that one. I always, oops, remember my screen's locked, right? So turn that off. Now my screen's not locked and I can go into radio settings. See, you got to remember these things. Okay, so that's my SD logs. Instant trim is another big one. Instant trim is like the source of mass confusion, and it's one of the best features on the radio. Notice that I have SF down. Now, the reason I told you guys earlier, I moved my switch. I put it over here, and the reason for that is because my aileron and elevator are here, and when I hit instant trim, if it's over here, what was happening is every time I'd reach to grab it, I'd move my stick. So that's why I move my momentary switch from here to here. That way, when I'm flying around, I can flip that momentary switch while my elevator and throttle or elevator and aileron are locked, and I never move them. That's why I do it. So let me show you what instant trim does, because a lot of people have no idea. And what I want to do is reset my trim because I've already moved them.
Trim center.
So the trim indicators are right here, okay? Right now I've got my aileron and elevator, that's aileron, they're both centered, they're both in the middle. And what I'm going to do is move my stick. Now let's say I'm flying my plane, and I'm going to exaggerate. Let's say I'm flying my plane and I need to hold my stick right there to keep it straight and level, all right? Now what all instant trim does, you take the switch right here, watch these two trim indicators, right? Watch that one and that one. So all you do is hold your plane so it's flying straight and level, you click the instant trim, and look what happened to those indicators. They moved. They moved. You see that? That's instant trim. Now you let go of the stick and the plane should be flying straight and level. And if you decide, wait, I need a little bit of this way to get it to fly straight and level, you just hit instant trim again. You say, well, I need to do that for straight and level, you just hit it again. If you need to do this, you hit it again. You can sit and pound that instant trim the whole time you're flying, and it trims the plane instantly for you. So many people have no idea what that one does. It's one of the best features on EdgeTX, and a lot of people have no clue about it. So yeah, that's instant trim. You just hold the stick, you hit the instant trim button, whatever you've assigned, and when you do it, you'll see the trims move, and now that's the new trim on the plane. The trick is, after you do that, you have to let go of the stick, because what will happen is if you don't, you'll get this stick movement plus a new trim for it. That's the trick, okay? So that's instant trim. Just wanted to show you guys that one because so many people have no idea. All right, that's instant trim. There's the one that I was telling you guys about earlier. Let me adjust this brightness a little bit. There's the one that I was telling you about earlier. When the SH switches away, no touch. All right, so that's the one that disables my touch screen. I just have switch SH away, and the function is no touch. So when I do that, let me back out. I'll click it. See how that highlighted? Now the touch screen doesn't work. So if you care about such things, go ahead and do it. Your money, your hobby, do what makes you happy. Personally, I don't really care about it. I do it to show you guys how, but I don't care. I just don't touch my screen. Okay. Now the next one, oh, hey, this is perfect. The last one I have on here is my timer reset. So if you look at the timer reset, this is another question I get from people all the time. How do I reset my timer? So I put a global function in my radio. When I use SE down, that's this switch right here, SE. When I pull SE down, I have an option here, I'll edit it, to reset timer number 1. And that is, I'm blowing you guys out on brightness, there we go. I have SE down to reset timer number 1, and that's enabled. So let's go back to the main screen and look at my timer. It's saying, hey, John, you're 35 seconds over, man. You got to do something. Well, watch this. When I hit SE down, my timer is reset to 2 minutes. The trick now, though, is notice that my timer is not incrementing. It's because I'm constantly resetting it. In order for your timer to work, do that. A better option than a switch would be a momentary. If you can use one of your trim switches as a momentary, do that. It's better to reset your timer, because that way, I've had it happen where I've gone flying with that reset on and my timer didn't start counting down. That's bad. So it'd be much better to put that on a momentary switch, and you can steal these trim switches and use them as momentary if you want to. But that's how you reset a timer. There's another way to reset the timer. Let me show you that. If you long press the jog dial, or just press the jog dial and scroll to the left, you see this option right here. It says reset telemetry. Check this out. We'll hit reset telemetry, and notice that little reset timer 1 right there. All we have to do is click on that and our timer gets reset again. All right, that's a timer reset. That's it. Gotta lock this screen. So we'll hit that radio settings and make sure that was the last global function. Yep, there's all my global functions. Those are all things on my radios. Pretty much every radio I have has that list of global functions. And the reason I do that is it makes operating the radio and my models easier and more efficient and faster. That's it. We are done with the content. I'm going to look through questions and then we're going to shut this one down. So a lot of hellos. It looks like Izakul was in first. Hobie, nice try, but Izakul was in there. He gave me a test 1, 2, 3, but that counts. William Tam, how you doing, my friend? Michael Bopit, hello. Mr. Skyrider, hello from Massachusetts. Yeah, I was just reading about tax levels in different states. Gary T, hello. Hobie, how you doing, my friend? Oh yeah, we already got you. Fred Christensen, thanks for doing this. You're welcome, Fred. Hope you find it helpful. Let's see, Ard Shell. I can't read that. Yet another RC channel. How you doing, my friend? Thanks for joining. Tim Smith, hello. Chuck, hello. Robert, like the defensive programming idea. Going to use it? Yeah, it is an often overlooked thing, and I definitely would recommend it, Robert. The defensive programming works. So yeah, absolutely. Learn to use that technique. It's really good. Just remember, the exclamation means not. That's all. It just means not. So if you see a not, the exclamation, it means it's not this. So you can use logic with a not. It's really good. Let's see. Heli Zero. I do have backlight on S2 as a global function. Yeah, you can put it on S2 as well. Yeah, if that works for you. That's the cool thing about it, man. It's whatever works for you, right? You don't have to do it my way. Oftentimes in these videos, people say, well, I don't want it on the left side. I want to be on the right. Well, go ahead and put it on the right. You can do whatever makes you happy. I'm just showing you how to do things, right? That's it. So Heli Zero, a lot of scrolling when choosing a sound. It should be in groups. Yeah, I know. That's one of those things. Have you ever seen Amber? Oh my gosh, man, you're scrolling forever with Amber. The better option really is to do it in Companion, right? That's a much better option. Tim Smith says, what's the best way to center servo arms in outputs? Would it be PPM center? That's a topic for another day, Tim. I don't really have time to get into that one, but yeah, you can do it that way. You can use trim. You can just set a trim and then copy trim to sub trims. It kind of depends on what you want to do, but there are implications, and it's not as clear. It's not as clear as it may seem, but there are implications related to servo movement that you have to be aware of. So you can, if you change the midpoint, you'll have less resolution on one side than the other. So it kind of needs a little homework. The obvious best answer, I don't like to sound like a purist, but the best answer is to try and mechanically do it the best you can. And then for me, I just use trim and then copy trims to sub trims. By the way, since you asked the question, let me show you that. Look at this one. You see how this aileron trim is ridiculous over here? It's all the way over here, right? So we have aileron trim all the way over, and I'll just show you. I'll move it. What am I doing here? Why aren't you moving? There it goes. So it's moving. All right, see how that aileron trim is all the way over there? Watch this little technique. I'm going to show you guys something cool. If you didn't know this, let's do the elevator too while we're at it. I'm going to put the elevator up here. So elevator's up, aileron's all the way to the left. Let's go into the model settings, and we'll go into outputs, and we're going to see this field that says add all trims to sub trims, and notice that all these trims are all 0 right now. There's no changes, right? So I'm going to click add all trims to sub trims. Now you see this variation right here, -19, 15, and 0. So what happens is the trims have now been copied to sub trims, and the trims themselves have been reset. So look what happens when we go back to the main screen. You see how that's back at center and that's back at center? That's what copy trims to sub trims does. Okay, RC tips, hi Art, please check your keyboard settings upside down is not appreciated. Yeah, thanks for that. Jerry says, awesome stuff, just got Edge on my Radiomaster at 6:30 this morning, worked on it all night, thanks John, this is my next step. Good for you, Jerry, good luck with it. And I do have another video coming up, by the way, to show you how to flash with the new tool Buddy on EdgeTX.org. I'll show you guys that one in another video. That's a topic for another day. Defensive programming, I love, yep, you got to do it that way. Richard Daggett says, howdy, hello. Hobie says, needs to do a wing setup for mixes. Yeah, we can do a wing setup for mixes. I think I probably have a snippet on that, Hobie, actually. But yeah, we could do that. It's not hard. Wings are easy. Yet another RC channel says, is there any reason to not convert to EdgeTX now? Starting to look quite complete. No, all my stuff has been on Edge. Everything I've got is on Edge. All my planes, all my quads, all my helicopters, everything is on Edge at this point. So my answer to that is no reason to delay. No, just that simple. No reason to delay. Flaps with delay. You know, that's funny you bring that up. I actually, well, sure, I'll show you flaps with delay. Let's just do it. I'm going to show you real quick. We'll go into mixes and we'll pretend that my elevator is a flap. Okay. So we'll go into the mixer, we'll hit edit, and all we're going to do, Hobie, is go down, and you see this little field right here, slow up, slow down, and then there's delay up and delay down. So what the difference between those two options or groups of options are, delay up and down says when you activate it, wait for a period of time before you do anything. So the reason you might want to do that is, say you activate your flaps, you want to get ready and focus to move your elevator, right? That's why you might do a delay. And then slow up and slow down changes the speed at which it occurs. So I'm going to add something here. We're going to add 25 seconds. No, that's too long. We're going to add we'll add 5 seconds. We'll add a 5-second delay up, and we'll do a 5-second delay down, and we'll do a slow up, and we'll set that at 10 seconds, and we'll do a slow down at 10 seconds as well. It's a good question. I just did this with flaps on my Bighorn, by the way. So there we go. Now we have to add a switch. So we'll just do a switch. Let's just do a, let's see. We're going to do a source, and we'll do, I don't know, we'll call it SC. And we'll call it SC down. Okay. So now if I use this, you see how the output right there, you see how it slowly is moving? That's a delay up and a delay down, right? So we'll move it again, and we'll do SC down. See how it slowly goes? That's how you slow your flaps down. That's how you do it. All right. Flaps with delay, we got that. Hit the like button. Yeah, Hobie, thanks for hitting the like whip. I appreciate that. If you guys like this kind of stuff, it does help the channel to leave a like, you know, leave a comment after the video. All that's very helpful. If you don't mind, it's helpful. So Rockford says, I'm just going to switch over to EdgeT today. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and experience. You're welcome. Glad to help. Yet another RC channel says, cool, thanks. Yep, sure thing. Are you copying and editing model YAMLs for programming copies yet? Example, your global functions. Well, global functions aren't a model setting. Those are radio settings, so just keep that in mind. And I actually have edited YAML files by hand, so it's kind of cool. It's really actually kind of neat that you can do that. If you know what you're doing, it really speeds things up even more. So GS, bad example, SF, for example. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You can use special functions to edit your so you can go to model files and edit your special functions by hand. So if you, like, for example, you know how I just did the high rate, low rate things, let's say that's a special function per model that you have, like a track that says, I don't know, rate lock or heading lock or gear down or whatever, and you want to change that per model, you can find the right file and then just copy and replace in all your YAML files, like search and replace. It's really fast that way. So yeah, very, very cool technique to be able to do stuff like that, no doubt. Okay, well, look, I think we're at the end of the questions. We've covered, I'm going to go back to the Blackboard and just kind of rehash. We've kind of covered everything I said we'd cover, right? We created a new model, we set up a timer, we did dual rates, we reversed servo, did the first widgets, and covered my radio options. There you go. We went down the list. Well, I appreciate you guys spending some time with me this Sunday afternoon. It's raining and cloudy here, so, you know, not a day for flying, so I got stuck indoors. May as well be productive with the time, right? So I appreciate you guys joining me. Thanks for hanging out with me on Sunday afternoon, and have fun with EdgeTX. That's all I can say. I hope this material has been helpful for you. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons and remind you guys, if your budget allows and you're so inclined, on patreon.com/RC video reviews, I have a tier for $3 a month. You can help out if you like. If not, that's fine too. Glad to have everybody participating and hanging out. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy.